Welcome to another live episode of the Eric Crocker Show. We don't have the music, we don't have the sound effects because my mixer decided to do some kind of firmware update, file corrupted. I don't know. But there's no sound, any of that, but it doesn't matter because the only sounds that you need to hear is the voice of Eric Crocker and the voice of Coach Desi. Coach Desi, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're going to be getting into a lot of different things, and I definitely want to talk about this thing I mentioned on Locked On 49ers with a certain player that I think is overrated. Not because I don't think he's a good football player, but just based on his usage, all right, and why I think that 49er fans, and maybe they're on the same wavelength as Kyle Shanahan and what he thinks about this player, but there's a certain player where I'm just like, I understand what you do, but there has to be more of a production that makes it make more sense to me. So I can't wait to discuss that. You guys hold on for that. But first, we got to talk about some of the players that have dealt with either minor injuries or kind of getting banged up. And we want to definitely start with Brandon Aiyuk, who essentially is 49ers wide receiver one. And if you want to know what he brings to the table, if you want to know what his value is, I think it was very clear watching the New York Giant game where it felt like the passing lanes were a little clogged. Like there were just players jumping routes. They were all over it. Uh, in turn, we saw Purdy probably have one of his shakier starts to a game, even to the extent of Kyle Shanahan saying, you know what, gotta reel this guy back in a little bit. Let's throw some screens to Deebo, throw some screens to Christian McCaffrey. And I think a lot of that was predicated on missing Brandon Aiyuk, a guy who I feel like really opens up the offense at the second level of the defense. So he was out with a shoulder injury. It was something that we thought he would come back from. He was a limited participant in practice, starting off the week. Ultimately, he did not play. Maybe it's because it's a short week. What are your thoughts on what's going on with the shoulder?
Yeah, that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan came out and said. If it had been a Sunday game, he would have been activated and been able to play. So they just probably gave him some more time to heal that up. I'm guessing, again, based on the CT scan, everything was negative. So I still think it's just kind of a bone bruise, but also maybe there was a little bit of a strain of the AC joint that we talked about last week. So good call on Kyle Shanahan and the whole 49ers crew to keep him healthy. We need him for many, many more games ahead. We did miss him in the game. There was some nice, he always has a way of getting open. Those explosive plays, getting the ball down the field. I mean, that's what he's there for. And so we kind of missed that, but it was a fantastic game regardless. Little shaky, like you said at the beginning, but, we got the W and we're happy to head into this week with 3-0.
One guy who had an amazing game and I thought was probably the best version of this player that we've ever seen, Deebo Samuel. But on one of those plays that made it such a special performance, in my opinion, was him falling on the ball. And I think everybody was holding their breath. Maybe he was holding his breath, and I'm like, hopefully the wind just got knocked out of him. They did the X-ray on his ribs. There was no breakage or anything going on there, but Deebo Samuel, is he fine? Is he good? I think it was something that they kind of are trying to like give him a little bit of time off here and there, just make sure he's good. But I think the Monday practice, they had a Monday practice since they had such a long layoff, and I don't think he participated in that practice. So, do we have anything to worry about with Deebo Samuel?
Deebo, it was an interesting injury. I saw it and it immediately reminded me of the same injury that Brandon Aiyuk had the week before. So they literally fell forward with the ball on that. They kind of fell onto the ball. I guess, for Aiyuk, it was higher up, hitting more of the clavicle. For Deebo, it was probably more obviously lower in the chest, hitting the ribs. So ribs are tricky. You can do rib x-rays. And I'm going to be really honest with you. Rib x-rays are tricky. You can miss a very small hairline fracture in the ribs on an x-ray. It's just tough. Unless it's an obvious fracture, it's kind of hard to find. So he could still potentially have a little crack in the ribs that maybe was missed. It could just be soft tissue, more of a cartilage injury than anything. We really don't have a lot of information in regards to, exactly what he's dealing with. But, like you said, x-rays negative is obviously good. It's not anything that should be super worrisome, but like I said, ribs are tricky. It hurts to breathe, it hurts to cough, to laugh, depending on how severe the injury is. So you can imagine for someone like Deebo, who's like a small tank out there running around, dragging people with him, people are, on top of him and getting tackled. It's not going to feel great. So, but they've got a nice 10 days of a mini bye, as they call it, to relax and recover. So it's all going to be contingent upon how he feels throughout this week in practice.
I think there's a player, and we could talk about him next, that dealt with a rib injury back in 2022 season, heading into the game against the Seattle Seahawks, the rivals up there in the Pacific Northwest, and that's Brock Purdy. He had a bad rib injury in that game, so much so they didn't know if he would be able to play. He could barely throw a football in that game. Obviously, he toughed it out, and we've continued to see him tough out things, but he also toughed out having a slow start in the New York Giants game, and I saw a lot of people like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is terrible." I'm like, hold on. Matter of fact, they went as far to say this is the worst game we've seen Brock Purdy play, and it was a bad game from Brock Purdy. I'm like, okay, hold on. It was a weird / bad first drive. Okay, the first drive, that was bad. Outside of that, I thought Kyle Shanahan did a really good job of kind of settling him down. And then obviously as the game continued, we saw him just make more and more throws, had some explosive passing plays. One to Deebo Samuel that was caught, awesome. One to Christian McCaffrey that was dropped, but perfect pass. And Christian actually caught it, but then the defender punched it out. Good job by the DB. Nobody ever gives DBs credits, or it was a linebacker, but nobody ever gives the defensive guys credits. It's all on the offense. But I thought the defender made a better play than McCaffrey made a poor play. There's been a lot of conversation about Brock Purdy and him climbing the ranks as a quarterback. And where is he? His numbers say he's kind of a top 5 quarterback in this league. But then some people are like, nah, he's not top 5. You got all these weapons. This guy's, they kind of, bump him up some. I think we saw that from Jimmy Garoppolo, where there were, especially I think 2019, there was a season where Jimmy was like the, like number 5 quarterback in like every statistic or something like that, or like top 5, top 7, like in every category, but nobody would ever say he's a top 5 quarterback. So with Brock Purdy, I think it's very clear, at least in my opinion, we are seeing a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, and it continues to look good. But at what point do we just say, you know what? The guy's just hella good. This is what he's always going to be, a really good quarterback that makes good decisions, that might start off slow in a game here and there. Obviously, he's not the most physically gifted guy, so he doesn't wow you with throws. But more times than not, he makes the right decisions. And if need be, he can make plays on the move. And he also clearly can throw the ball downfield. We saw him miss some in the Rams game. That didn't stop him. He continued to fire, and we saw him complete a couple in the Giants game. But what are your thoughts on not so much just the ranking, but just, I guess, the way that Brock Purdy is viewed?
You guys know I'm a big fan. I love Brock Purdy. I think he is really, really smart, and I think he plays to his abilities. We know what we're getting with him. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo come out in the Raiders game and look like Jimmy Garoppolo. This is what we've needed, though, is Brock Purdy. We need a rock steady, someone who is steady and is smart and can protect the ball and knows when to, throw it downfield, when to dump it off. Check down, all of those things. And I think that's what makes him special, is he knows what his talents and abilities are. He's really, really strong in it. And that's what you see on the football field. It's a big difference, right? I mean, we're not seeing these, nervousness in the pocket and making these throws that you're just like, oh, why, just why? And even, I think you even said that he doesn't really have the strong arm, the Josh Allen arm, which he doesn't. I mean, that's true, but he did make some great throws down the field that impressed me, to where I was like, I don't know that I've really seen that. And even though he didn't connect, just the ability to do it, because, sometimes you're going to get those calls. And that's what he was doing, I think, was kind of obviously be great for him to catch it, for the get the touchdown. But if he's at least throwing it and getting the flag, that's still yardage.
Right. So, I've loved how aggressive he's been. And I always tell people, like, throw the ball down the field, because you might get a catch, might get a penalty. All right. And most of the time, the worst case scenario is an incompletion. It's very rare you see the actual interception happen. So keep taking those shots. More times than not, something positive comes from it. And let's say, even if you're not connecting, maybe you don't get the catch, you don't get the flag, you maybe get the incompletion, it still makes defenses have to respect the fact that, hey, they actually can throw the ball downfield, or they will. So that kind of opens up things underneath as well. And when I say underneath, I mean that 10 to 20 yard range, where Brock Purdy has been the best that they have ever seen in that range. Last year, he was the best ever at it. It was a small sample size. There's no way he continues that. I know I was like, man, there's no way he continues that. But even if it's not to that extent, he's still going to be good at it. he has exceeded that and continues to play above and beyond anyone else in that range. It is not even close. So he's doing a terrific job of that. Um,
I have a question for you, Croc.
yeah,
So the Dolphins are looking really hot, right?
they are.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to talk crazy. I'm just going to talk completely crazy right now. So I remember back in the day, I was always arguing with a friend of mine over who was the better quarterback. Was it Marino or Montana? And here we are. I'm not comparing per se because I know it's different talents, but if you look at Tua, he can be compared a little bit to Marino, right? Because Montana's always complimenting Marino in that he was a very fast processor. The way he could get the ball out of the pocket or out of his hands was really quick. And I think Tua has that, right? And then Montana was like the scrappy. He was kind of a smaller quarterback. Am I crazy? Like, is there a small little resurgence of this maybe argument?
I think I actually like that angle, and that's a great question. I think this is more comparable. I think Justin Herbert and Brock Purdy, right? So Justin Herbert, Marino, Brock Purdy, Montana, and I think they correlate on different levels, right? I think obviously Marino had a certain level of success. I want to say first year or second year, like he was in the Super Bowl, right? Right. We haven't seen that from Herbert yet, but just in the sense of a player that is really good, we could tell he's awesome. We know how talented of a quarterback he is. But one thing about Marino and why he's never thought of as the best quarterback ever, it's only because he didn't get the ring. It's only because he didn't win those type of games, right? But most people tell you, like, when it comes to just pure thrower, talent, all that, big guy, handsome, got the hair, and I've seen the old pictures of Marino, like he was the guy, right? Um, when you see that's Herbert, like that's Justin Herbert, a guy who clearly right now he is one of the most talented guys, but everybody always questions it because they haven't won. I just watched this guy throw 47 passes in the game for like over 400 yards, and the interesting thing was he was blitzed on the second highest percentage of his dropbacks ever. There's only been one player that was blitzed on a higher percentage of dropbacks from next gen stats and all that. Guess who that player is?
It's our guy, isn't it?
Brock Purdy,
Brock
just last
Purdy.
week. So Brock Purdy is the highest ever as it pertains to next gen stats, and Herbert right there, right underneath him at 82%. I think Purdy was like 84%,
Yeah.
and Herbert was blitzed on 82% of his dropbacks. So, and then you got to see how the two played, and even though the way they came to what they did from a statistical category standpoint was different. You know, Herbert was completed 40 out of 47 of his passes, right? Like that's special to me.
Yeah.
Completed 40 out of 47 passes and he was blitzed on 82% of his dropbacks, over 400 yards. He's throwing the ball downfield. But when I talk about it looking different, there was this play, and I might have to find it on Twitter and kind of show you guys it. But there was this play. He's rolling out to his left, and there's a player across the field. Like they tell you, do not throw late and across the field. You don't do that, right? And this is the part when people talk about having a big arm, and you don't need a big arm. And if you're able to play in rhythm and structure in the context of the offense, then you don't need a big arm. But if you want to do what the hell this dude just did, then you are going to need a big arm. And he rolled out to his left, and I'm gonna find this tweet so I can show you guys it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna wait until I find it. Hold on, it was Ted. I want to say that posted it. All right, let me go to his page. I know he has the videos. That's Jimmy G. We don't want to see him. That's more Jimmy G. There's a lot of Jimmy G there. All right, but where is that Herbert play? He showed a Herbert play. He showed a Mahomes play, and there was a special Mahomes play that he showed. All right, he's showing Mac Jones punch Sauce Gardner in the genitals, which I thought was very weird, but all right. Did you see that?
Yes, it was so weird.
Mac Jones does a lot of weird things. I think that's the best way to kind of explain it. It's like why would you do that?
And
And Mac Jones does those things.
yeah, it was like a tap. It wasn't even it was just awkward.
Yeah, it was like he just walked up. Okay, here we go. Let me see if this is the play. Roll out to his left. Okay, here we go. All right, we found it, y'all. We found it. All right, so these are things right here you are not supposed to do. But again, you don't need a big arm. I always say this: you don't need a big arm until you need a big arm, and it just adds a different dynamic of the things you're supposed to do. So when people talk about uh, Herbert, and there are people, oh, he's overrated, they're not winning, whatever. Like, look, he can't control a lot of things, but the talent and the ability is off the chart. So, are you able to see this, Coach Desi?
Yes.
All right, here we go. You are not supposed to roll out this way like he just did. All right, and throw the ball across the middle. And if you do, you better have an arm that's going to put it on the receiver. You're not supposed to be able to do this. He's even still drifting to his left and throws a dot. Most guys, that ball hangs in the air a little too long, and that defender gets over there and picks it off. All right. So when you start talking about just special throws of the football and Dan Marino, this guy is like that of the NFL right now. I mean, this is just this to me. When you talk about having a big arm, everybody thinks it's just cocking back and throwing the ball 75 yards down the field. It's not that. It's just having the ability to make certain throws that other guys wouldn't dare attempt or should not attempt. And that right there is a perfect example of it. But I went on a tangent. We're talking about the comparisons to quarterback. And I think Joe Montana, he has really liked, especially what he saw last year from Brock Purdy. He was all in. And I think when you watch him play right now and you just see like who he is, I bet Joe Montana sees a lot of comparisons of himself in this guy where it's like he's scrappy, not the biggest guy, he's tough. Really, all the things that you said, accurate, knows how to play with timing. That's what a quarterback is supposed to look like. All right. And then Dan Marino is the other guy, Justin Herbert, who just completed 40 out of 47 passes while getting blitzed at a high rate and over 400 yards. And I mean, just special stuff in that comeback win or that win over.
I'm definitely a big fan of Herbert for sure.
Yeah.
And if I were a Chargers fan, I'd be really annoyed that we have that level of talent at the quarterback and, we're just not producing. But
my big brother who I'm actually about to pick up from the airport in a couple hours, hour and a half or whatever. But he lives in Irvine, and he sees a lot of Charger players. And he called me, right? And he said, Eric, I just saw Justin Herbert in the grocery store. He said he looks like a lineman. Like he's like, that's the biggest quarterback I've ever seen. So Herbert is a huge guy. And where my brother kind of mistaked him for an offensive line, then he looked and he's like, that's not an old lineman. That's Justin Herbert. This dude is huge. All right. We got Joe now 49er in the chat. He says Herbert is the Marino of this era will not win a Super Bowl. And that's tough, man. That's tough. Put him on the 49ers and then we'd probably be having a different conversation about what he would and would not win. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. I'm going to get a little spicy coming up. One of the more players that I feel like is the most overrated player on the 49ers. We got Rick Diaz in the chat. Says, Eric, like your hat. Appreciate it. Someone also complimented you on your shirt. They said they like your shirt.
Yeah, I got out of my business clothes and I have so you guys know I'm superstitious, like super duper superstitious. And if you look back, every time I've ever been on this show, I'm wearing red and black. So even if you see black shirt, I've got my red pants on or red, slacks on. But today I was like, oh no, I'm in all purple. So I had to like hurry up and change. Now, like we're winning and now I have to always wear red and black. So
keep that going, 49ers. And again, one thing we haven't talked about with Brock Purdy, because it almost seems like an afterthought, but he has not lost a regular season game yet, which is really amazing. It's amazing. And you can't, I know I should knock on wood. You probably aren't supposed to. I don't even think that's real wood, but I'll knock on that anyways.
Anyway, I went to the Monday Night Football game and I wore my 49ers gear just because, it was the Eagles playing the Bucks. And so I rooted for the Bucks wearing a 49ers shirt.
There we go. I like it. I go to these games and I see people wearing another team and it's like, look, you guys got your thing going on, whatever. This is my favorite team, but I'm just here to, entertainment. And that's what sports is. We got Damon in the chat. He has a question for Coach Desi. Shout out to my guy, Damon. He says, what is the most misunderstood aspects of sports injuries? And like and subscribe. I appreciate that. I can't hit the button again. My soundboard, my mixer is down right now, so I can't hit the like and subscribe. But most misunderstood aspect of sports injuries.
Ooh, this one's great. Great question, Damon. I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, I mean, part of what I do here is I kind of explain how an injury happens. So that's, hopefully education and learning how an injury happens can help lead to prevention. But I think that, golly, this one's stumping me. Misunderstood aspect of sports injuries. I think it's just understanding the return, understanding, how quickly an athlete can return from an injury, understanding the type of injury, what's in store. I think that's the hardest part because people just want their players back. And so that's the question is, when can they come back? When can they come back? And oftentimes we don't have access to that information to truly gauge it. Just like last week, I was like, oh, I kind of expect Brandon Aiyuk to be back in the game. And then they didn't. And I was like, yep, that's what happens when you finally try to go out there and make a statement. But, obviously there might be something more going on because they weren't very forthcoming with that information. But I would say that's probably the most misunderstood aspect of the sports injury.
This one might be, this is really good from LKV. He says, I'm guessing the rehab is the most misunderstood aspect, is hard. And I think I saw someone else say, shout out to my guy D Graves in the chat. Let's go, D Graves. My guy Derek Graves in the chat. That's my bro right there, 209 Stockton. Coach at Kimball High School. Great coach, man. One of the best receiver trainers in, really, I would say, in California or Northern California. He's one of the best receiver coaches / trainers in the nation. So shout out to my guy D Graves in the chat. But he says, in my opinion, everybody heals different. I think that's a good one. And that kind of alludes to what you're saying. When you think a guy might be coming back and then it's like, oh, no, he doesn't. Then everybody thinks, well, this guy came back after 2 weeks, like Jimmy Garoppolo. He had the high ankle sprain and people think he's supposed to come back on their timetable because, usually it's a 3 to 6 week injury, depending on the position. And quarterbacks come back sooner. Then we saw Patrick Mahomes playing the Super Bowl. He had a high ankle sprain. He played on it. Why can't Jimmy? But I think everybody's healing is different and everybody's pain thresholds is different. So that's something as well. But also, I think one of the most misunderstood, and I think it was it LVK? I saw it, but someone said the mental aspect of coming back. And that's one thing where I had a high ankle sprain and, I had a high ankle sprain. We'll talk about that another time, but here's something more current. I had crazy toothache. And I had to go to the dentist. They did some root canal type stuff. They're trying to save my tooth. I'm like, look, I can't. I'm missing a bunch of teeth already. You can't take this tooth out. And it's kind of in the front. People will see it. Okay. But so I'm talking to them about that. They kind of fix it. And they're like, all right, you're going to come back on the 10th and we're going to do like a full whatever root canal. We're going to put a cap on it, whatever. I asked for a gold tooth. They said, yeah, we got you. All right. But but they text me and ask me like, hey, how's the pain? And I'm scared to eat on this side because I'm like, I'm not recovered from the mental aspect of what I went through. Like just not being able to sleep at night, drinking water, like cold water on this side or something hot and just shooting up through my nerves. Like it was a lot of pain I've dealt with over the last month. And then finally our insurance kicked in. So I was like, hell yeah, let's go. I need to go to the dentist. But I still don't know if even though I don't feel the pain right now, it's like sometimes it's like, am I imagining pain? So is that something that happens where people are trying to overcome the mental hurdle of an injury that they sustain?
Yeah, absolutely. Who's struggling with that, I think, right now is Dak Prescott. I still don't think Dak has come back from his injury fully, either mentally or even physically. I think, I can't remember who said it. It might have been Orlovsky was talking about how when he came into the league, he was like a dual threat runner. He would, escape the pocket, get out, get yardage. And he hasn't really been doing that. And that was something that was really picked up in this last game. In their loss, he was not scrambling. So the defense didn't have to account for that quarterback coming out of the pocket. But is it because he still has pain? I mean, that was a horrific injury he came back from. Or is it also some layer of mental block of just, I'm going to get hurt if I get out of the, run out of the pocket if I do this? It's very tricky. And that's what I mean by return to play. It's hard because, there's so many different things, different factors that are playing into this. Rehab is one of them. Mental side is another. Physical is in terms of pain. So there's a lot that is involved in overcoming an injury. And, Twitter's wild. Twitter will, there's no holds bars on Twitter. So they will.
Oh man, I know. I have a take that I'm about to say right now. Not even a take. It's just a thought. anything that you hear from me on here or Locked On 49ers, right? And we get a lot of listeners on Locked On 49ers. It is just a thought. Like it's a thought like if you and I were in the same room, we would have a normal conversation and a thought might come up and you'd be like, Croc, what do you think about this? Like, do you think, and then, we just like bounce things back and forth. And I'd say why I agree or why I disagree, or maybe I bring a different perspective, right? You can't really do that on Twitter. And you can damn near barely do it on YouTube. Luckily, I just have my own show. So it's like, look, you guys are going to hear me talk for fucking 40 hour long. And I'm going to make you're going to hear this point just so that when you do come to me, like at least know like the full context of what I'm saying. And it's not that I feel like I'm right and you're wrong, but just hear me out. Hear me out. We got a super chat here. And is the Surtain rumor true? You know what? I've seen people talk about it. I haven't given it any thought outside of why does I keep seeing this on 49ers social media or Twitter. I think I saw it on Larry Kruger. I want to say I saw somebody titled their YouTube something about Surtain. I think I saw my guy Haberman and Middlecoff. I think they talked about it. I think sometimes things take off like that because it's kind of the hot thing to talk about, and maybe it'll get. Not saying that these people are like trying to get clicks, but people watch the show and it's just some topics, conversation, right? That might be a conversation. My bro Donald come over today, or my big bro BJ. I pick him up and hey man, you guys get Surtain, and then we just might have a conversation, and maybe that's more what people are doing, but it's not something that I've ever even thought of. I don't know if the Broncos would be in a fire sale. He's really one of the best corners in the league right now. He's been really good. I know he got beat late for a touchdown against Miami Dolphins. They got just drugged, but he's really good. He's great, and he'd be terrific on the 49ers. Off coverage, press coverage. He's just different. So I don't know. I don't know if any of this is true. I'll find out if it's true when you guys find out if it's true, and that's if anything comes from it. So
it's like
outside
the
of
Taylor
that,
Swift, Travis Kelce saga. We didn't know it was true until she showed up at the game.
She showed up at the game and made him a bigger celebrity, which Travis Kelce, he's like one of the most polarizing players in the NFL. I didn't know that he can become a bigger star, but dating her, I guess, has it. And I think they went out to eat and like bought everybody's food and told them to like leave or something. Did you hear about that?
No.
Everybody that was eating, they went out. I know I'm probably on social media too much. Everybody that was there dining, they're like, all right, everybody here, all your food is paid for, but you have to leave right now. I don't feel like I want that much power over people. Like I'm gonna fly you out. Like, no, motherfucker, like I don't want you to buy my food. I have money to buy my own food. I'm sitting here with my family because I want to have a good meal. Like I'm not leaving. I don't care. Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, I don't care who you are. Paying for my meal, I need my meal plus some. All right. So you want to pay for my meal and give me $1,000 to leave from this great, enjoyable night I'm having out with my wife or my kids, then cool. But just paying for my meal, I can pay for my own meal. I'm not doing that. All right. So, but anyway, the Surtain rumor, I have no idea. I think we'll find out together. I brought up something on Locked On 49ers, and this came up because Kyle Juszczyk, Peacock asked if he's being phased out of the offense. And I talked about how, and again, this wasn't my thought. It was Peacock, and we're just having a discussion. Okay. Is he getting phased out? Because his usage is just down from the standpoint of just, rushes, which is never really high. They don't really use him a whole lot in the run game. He did get one carry last game, but also like receptions. Like he's not being targeted at all. And they're like, is he being phased out of the offense? And I'm like, you know what? That's a great question. I would take it a step further. And because of the comments that we got from talking about that, making that topic, I see how people are talking about Kyle Juszczyk. First of all, let me make it very clear. I think Kyle Juszczyk is the best and probably the most versatile fullback in the league. And I almost call him a tight end because he is like a tight end as well. He could be your tight end too. He could be your fullback. He could be whatever you want to be. And when I watch the 49ers and how they utilize him, they do that SS, right? Like they line him up at receiver spots. They line him up at fullback. They can use him on the line as a tight end, right? Like he's in all these different areas. He does all these different things. But I'm seeing comments like, he does all the little things. He does the little, and I'm like, well, There are a lot of players in the NFL that do the little things. I don't think that should make you the highest paid player at your position. Okay. I talked about Juwan Jennings. I think Juwan Jennings does all the little things, right? Like he third down, he catches the ball. He's blocking in the run game. Like those are little things that I think really help contribute to the 49ers winning games. He is not the highest paid player on the 49ers, but he does the little things. A player that I feel like can essentially be overrated based on what he makes is Eric Armstead. I think Eric Armstead is a terrific player. I understand the value that he brings. Eric Armstead is terrific against the run. He can give you some pass rush productivity, but you're one of the highest paid players on the team with one of the biggest cap hits, and you had 0 sacks. And I'm not saying, I'm talking about last year, like 0 sacks in an entire season. I'm not saying that he doesn't bring value. I think he's terrific. But I think based on his production and the money he makes, his production from a statistical standpoint, be a bit overrated, right? Like, can you pay two other guys to be one guy be a good run stopper, another guy be a solid third down pass rusher, and pay them $5 million each instead of paying Armstead $20 million by himself and still have $10 million left to pay other? Like, I think so. But when I look at Kyle Juszczyk, and I said on this thing, and people, I just read the comments this morning. They're like, "Oh, Croc is tripping." And it's like, look, I'm not in the hot takes. I'm not even in the clicks. Like, if y'all watch my YouTube or not, it doesn't matter. I'm about to make like $10,000 this month off of Underdog Fantasy. All right, just off of like my promo. So like, I'm not fishing for clicks and for something to make money off YouTube. I'm just giving a thought. I think that Kyle Juszczyk, while he is very versatile and he does a lot of really good things, based on his production from a guy that's the highest paid at his position and continues to be that, I think he's overrated from that standpoint. Now, if tomorrow they start throwing the ball to him, and I understand the mismatches that he creates, being there, being able to run routes, catch the ball, you having to keep an extra linebacker on the field because he's there and he can run block. I understand that aspect of it. But I feel like you could pay other guys, you could pay a blocking fullback $900,000 to be a good run blocker. I think you can have your tight end 2 line up in the slot and do some of those things he does as well as block and not have to pay them $5+ million a year. So from that standpoint, and I see DJ, and this is a good point, he is also paid for the culture. Okay, I think that's overrated. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I said a whole lot because I wanted to make sure I was very clear, because I feel like sometimes people don't truly comprehend exactly what I'm saying. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's terrific. A little overrated. But what are your thoughts?
I think you put the context in there, and that's the important part. Is maybe it's more like he's overpaid, but not necessarily overrated, right? Because I think when people think about overrated, it's like, oh, this guy is the best in the that ever was, or that, when in those terms. And then he's really not. When you look at the statistics, or you look at his play and it's not there, then okay, that's overrated. But you're saying in terms of payment, right? Because I guess that's really what you're paying. If someone is at the top of their position, they're going to get paid the highest amount. So I guess that's what it comes down to. But there's not a lot of fullbacks out there, participating day by day like Kyle was last year, right? So, I mean, in terms of a small subset, yeah, he's the best and maybe he is highest paid, but is that really what we need? Is I think what it comes down to. Is that position even what is needed? And I think that's the bigger question. We're firing on all cylinders, doing just fine without his use. I mean, I am a huge fan. Nothing feels better than just, he runs into an end zone, you're like, juice, right? Like, as a fan, we love him. But we're demonstrating that there is an offense that exists without him. And that kind of sucks for me to say. But,
right. Well, I would say, because we said without him, he is on the field. And he is clearly doing something that brings a value. Is what he's doing on the field be bringing the value of being the highest paid at your position? Now, there was a time where they would throw the ball to him. And even if he gets 1 catch or 2 catches, at least you understand, like, just the threat of him being lined up at receiver and all that. Like, they're not even targeting him. And I understand they have a bunch of other guys. So if you have a bunch of other guys that you're getting the ball to and they're doing well and they're doing all these things, and you got running back and you got Christian McCaffrey, you have all this. Well, why are we making this fullback who's not being utilized in the passing game, because I think that's his added. Like, I don't think you pay him just to be a good run blocker.
Right.
You know, I think he, from my understanding, you know, sometimes he'll call out, you know, the blitzes and help the line and things like that. Like, he does a
Yeah.
lot. I understand that. And I'm not trying to count his pockets. This was just a thought. You know, hey, you make your money. I wouldn't say, hey, don't pay Kyle Juszczyk. I'm not saying that. I just look at it from the standpoint of just a conversation and him being phased out in the responses I saw. I'm just thinking, like, if he did not play in the game, how much would you truly notice? Like, do you think that Christian McCaffrey would get less yards? Do you think rushing yards? Do you think that Deebo Samuel or George Kittle would get less yards, you know, receiving? Like, you know, do you think that not having him, the offense would take a big hit from a production standpoint? And I would say no, unless they start using him in a different way than what they've shown over the first few games, which is a very small sample size. All right. But I would say right now, I would say no.
Yeah. I agree. Let me ask you this. Is he lining up more on the right side?
I don't know. What are you saying to help the right side of the line?
Yeah. Yeah. Just because, you know, that tends to be our weak side. That is the side that, you know, Purdy got injured on. So is he like the safety net right now?
Right. I mean, you know, and maybe that's
And
the
then,
case. I'll look into
then there
that.
may be value, right? But
We got Killer Young here.
Oh,
He says, Croc, ask CMC Mitchell if Juice is overrated. They're going to tell you 100% not. Listen, I'm not saying he's not a great football player. And see, this is the part. It's like people, I think he's missing what I'm trying to say. Then now I feel like I'm talking in circles. I'm not saying that he's not a tremendous football player. I'm not even saying that he's not the best fullback in the league. I'm saying based on his usage and how to utilize him. If they might say, yeah, he is the best fullback in the league, and they see what he does, and he does his dirty work, and he does all these things. I'm saying if I'm building a team right now, out of all the 49ers weapons, who would be the first to go? It would be him, all right? But he's the highest paid in the league at his position. So, yeah. And I see Jeep Crack, like I said, it's only 8 fullbacks in the league.
Yeah. I think he's over. I think the big point you're trying to make is, he's overpaid.
Yeah. Case 49 said, like, Jeff Wilson and Dwelly. If you go back to early 2019 season, there were a few games that he missed. And nobody in this chat would know because you couldn't tell. And I'm not saying he doesn't have, maybe there's some things that Kyle could not do because he wasn't out there. I wouldn't know that. All right. Like I wouldn't know. But you wouldn't know by watching that game that there was no Dwelly. Like when the 49ers played the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football 2019, Dwelly was playing fullback. 49ers hung 30-some points. The running game went crazy. Breida had a 90-yard touchdown run or whatever it was out the gate, right? Dwelly was playing fullback in that game. So, you know, that's all I just wanted to kind of touch on.
He got injured last year with his finger, and he missed a game as well. I can't remember which game he missed.
We got Timmy here in the chat, and he says, Timmy Pishron says, this is your meal. This is for your meal. I'm Travis Swift Rich. Thank you. I don't need the $5. Somebody in here was like, Croc making all this money off Underdog Fantasy. Streaming is my job. Streaming is my job. All right. So I stream full time. I think some people is like, oh, this stuff is like a hobby. I know for a lot of people, it is a hobby. I think the only hobby I truly have when it comes to streaming is my actual YouTube channel. Like this is my biggest hobby out of all the other ones. Like the Bleacher Report, I'll be on later today. They pay me good money to come on there and talk for 30 minutes. Underdog Fantasy, like that's a job for me in a sense. Like I don't make that much monthly, but I make monthly money off of Underdog. Locked on 49ers, like that is a job. But I think people look at streaming. I think even like my friends and stuff, it's like, oh, Croc is a podcaster. And I think when people think of podcaster, because there's a lot of people that's in that field that don't make money off of it, but everybody's different. But I actually make money off of streaming. Like this is a job for me. So whether it's Underdog, Bleacher Report, Locked On, or even money I get from this, like it all adds up at the end of the day. It's kind of a job. So, but I do appreciate the contributions and things like that. I love that. I do got to pay taxes. So,
Yes,
and I'm
you're
back in
not
California.
you're not overrated, Croc. Just so that we're all clear, you're definitely worth every $5 donation here.
Thank you, thank you, Coach Desi. We'll I think we'll end on that. I was going to bring the chat on. I'll bring the chat in on either tomorrow's episode or Friday's episode. I appreciate everybody that's in here right now. I don't have the sound effects to get the music that we're cutting this show. Do you have any last second thoughts on anything that we talked about today, Coach Desi?
It was my birthday Monday. I'm another
It was
year
your
old.
birthday?
It was my birthday Monday. Yeah.
Oh, happy belated birthday! Happy belated birthday!
Thank
You
you. My
don't
son,
look a day over 25 years old. So you're
yes,
you're
I got
you're aging
cardiac
very
too,
well.
so that felt good. And my son
You had a
got me.
party?
Oh no, I went to Monday Night Football.
Oh, okay. So that was the birthday present,
Well, yeah, it ended up being the birthday present, but my
even though it
son
wasn't
got me a
49.
Kittle jersey. So this is the first year my family finally got it together and realized, oh, you're a 49er fan. I should just buy you 49er stuff. So worked out.
Are you the only 49er fan in the family?
Sadly, yes.
How does that? So what's everybody else? Because I know you're in Florida.
Yeah, my husband's a Ravens fan, which, blah. And then, oh, thank you, Damon. Appreciate that.
I'm gonna
And then
send that $2 to her too. I'm gonna send that $2 to you from Damon.
No, my sons, neither one of them really, they couldn't care less. My younger one, he's an instigator. So, like, if we were playing the Cowboys, he'd be cheering for the Cowboys. Like, when my Tar Heels play, he cheers for Duke. Like, he's the instigator. So, I've almost put him outside the house because I've got, no, I'm just kidding. But no one else. Like, I think I'm just too intense. And so, they've just been like, I'm not going to be like mom. She gets too crazy with football. So
Yeah.
my mom is a 49er fan. I can't even believe I missed that. Mom and I are going to the Jacksonville game. We just bought our tickets. I should have waited for Jacksonville to lose before I bought those tickets, but they're bought. Be there.
All right, that's awesome. And I see 559 fishing. Shout out to Fresno area code right there. He said, "Don't let Juice find out you make $10,000 a month on the underdog. He might say you overpaid." I do not make $10,000 a month on the underdog. Here's one thing about being an entrepreneur: your income can fluctuate, and it can fluctuate by thousands in a month. So there's a month I can bring in $20,000. There's another month I might only bring in $7,000, right? A $13,000 difference. And again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. That's not accurate. But a $13,000 difference is drastic difference from one month to the other. So I do not make $10,000 a month from underdog, but I can see what I'm making from underdog right now, and I will get paid that next month. So, or for this month, but I get it in like 2 weeks or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, enough of money. I try to be like as transparent as possible because there's people that think people are like, somebody said, "Dang, Croc, do you need money that bad? Like you have to like have catchy titles." And it's like, I don't need the money. I'm just having a conversation. Like I'm just having a conversation. I hope everyone can find as much joy in what they do as I do with streaming and talking 49ers. It is something that I never thought I would be able to provide for my family through streaming. And I get asked a lot from people, how do you get into it? What, et cetera. And, how do you do this? And I'd say with anything that I've ever done. All right. So now I'm preaching a little bit. I wish I had this so I can hit the organs. Anything that you do in life, if you're really passionate about it, right, and you strive to do it, you have to go all out with doing it, not knowing what's on the other side. All right. I never went into this thinking that one day I would be really able to provide for my family, or I never put a timetable on that, but I gave it my all with just giving content on social media and talking about defensive backs and, breaking it down. It's a passion of mine, almost an obsession. And my wife she would be mad at me early on. You're on your phone too much. You're doing this. I'm like, I'm networking. I'm building something here. I don't know what's going to come from it, but I'm building something here. And it continued to build. And then once people started, I was on a podcast. It's like, man, you make $600 a month off this podcast. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. I'm a podcaster. And then people started inviting me on these big shows and big podcasts and radio stations and all that. And again, I didn't have like this expectation or goal initially. And then eventually it got to a point where it was like, okay, I think I can really monetize off of it. And I knew there were other people making money off of social media and streaming and all that. Now, okay, how do I do it? But getting into it, I didn't have that like in my head. It's like, oh, I'm doing all this because one day I'm gonna make X amount of dollars a month off of it. Like it was just, I'm gonna work as hard as I can, and if I work really hard and I have a good work ethic at it, then something could come from it, not knowing exactly what. So I did that with that. I did the same thing with like my football. At 21, 22 years old, I went back to junior college. I had worked in warehouses. I dropped out of junior college at the age of 18. I had a child at a young age. Working warehouses. I did all kind of crazy stuff. And at 22 years old, 22, I went back to junior college and played that year. And I did not know what would come from it, but I worked my ass off. I got back in shape. I lifted weights. I got on my stuff. I brought this certain level of tenacity to it, to where I don't know if I'll earn a scholarship. I don't know anything. I've never been recruited, but I'm going to give it my all, not knowing what's on the other side. And what was on the other side was 15 scholarship offers. I went to a Division II school because my time clock was all messed up. From there, I had opportunities. I was all conference, everything. I had opportunities to play in Arena Football League. And I didn't know what would come from that. It was just, I'm going to go here and I'm going to give it my all. And I'm going to work extremely hard. And nobody's going to be better than me. Like, that was my thoughts. And then that opened up an opportunity to the NFL. I never had this thought of, oh, if I do these things, I'll get to the NFL. I just knew if I do these things, I'll be able to put myself in position for whatever is next. So, whatever I make from month to month, it might, dip or whatever. I always feel like I'm not even doing enough. I feel like there's more I can do. I want to create this channel where I talk about all wide receiver, defensive backs, and really break it down and be like, that's the YouTube channel for that. When you're talking technique, you're breaking down clips, all that. I feel like that would be like my biggest thing, and that's just it's a passion of mine. So I hope all of y'all have something that you're really passionate about, and if it's this or that or whatever, give it your all. And if you do that, something on the other side might, bring you a lot of joy, as much joy as I get from streaming and talking to Coach Desi on here every Wednesday. Coach Desi, happy belated birthday, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you. And you know what? Just as a fan, let me just speak on behalf of all the fans. We adore you. We love you. We're so grateful that you're out here speaking on our behalf as a 49er fan, sharing your wisdom, sharing your stories. You're so authentic, and I just hope and pray that you're always who you are and who we've known to be. We're grateful for all that you do, and we're glad that your passion has become monetary, because we couldn't imagine this world without you. So
what's funny? When we were moving back from Arkansas, my wife moved back first, and then I was still there taking care of my gym and all that before we sold the house in the gym. And I moved my wife into this townhome that I'm in. Originally, I wasn't supposed to be here. That's why I don't have an office. I was still in Arkansas, and I still had all my stuff set up there. And I was only going to come back for like a couple days a week, or fly back and forth or whatever I had to do to make sure I see my family and everything. But that's why I'm in the kitchen. And I'm on Bleacher Report, and a lot of people are like, why is this guy potting from a kitchen? Don't worry about why I'm potting from a kitchen. Just worry about the content, all right? Eventually, I'll have my office back, but right now I'm here. But anyways, when I was moving my wife in, and I asked the neighbor, I said, hey, man, I saw he had like this doggy door to get out to the patio. I'm like, hey, man, where you get that doggy door from? And he said, Eric Crocker? Dude, I listen to you every day. I was like, oh man, that's what's up. So I get that. And it's like people, when they meet me, or like if I'm at the store, I was in Walmart the other day, and the guy was like, hey, you find everything you need? And I was like, yeah. And I was walking, I had my daughter on my shoulders. And he was like, my daughter, she likes to get on my shoulders for whatever reason, my daughter Pickle. But he was like, is there anything you need? And I'm like, oh no, I'm cool. And then he walked back. I said, wait, Eric Crocker? Dude, can I take a picture with you? Now it's causing this big scene as if I'm like this celebrity, and people are looking at me, and I'm like, I am a very normal person. I still don't even know how to deal with people recognizing me when I'm out. And it happens a lot, especially like if I go to like 49ers game or anything like that. But even in my hometown, I think it's really weird because it's just like I'm just Eric Crocker. I just do this, and I'm just really passionate about it. So I do appreciate everybody here. I appreciate Dusty Gold, who says, was it Sabercats season holder? Crocker balled out. I had a great time playing for Sabercats, and that was a job. I made good money there. But yeah, appreciate everybody, man. I appreciate all y'all, and thank you, Coach Desi. Those are really kind words. Lets me know I'm doing the right thing, even though some people come at me and call me an idiot. But it's good that
you got a whole tribe of people behind you that are ready to support you and lift you up anytime. So
I tell my wife, I say, it's always the negative people that are the loudest. The people that support you a lot of times you don't even hear, but they're supporting you from afar. So I appreciate that. All right, we're going to get out of here. I got to get to the airport, pick up my brother. Thank you, Coach Desi, so much. I appreciate you coming on.
See ya.
And everybody, you can, again, I know I make money off Underdog, but it is my job. Promo code Crocky. Download the app. Go to underdogfantasy.com. And yeah, all that good stuff. We got player props, all that. Subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, I'm out. Love y'all. Peace.